Bonjour everyone. Here I am at the bottom, my beautiful friend, the Moreton Bay fig tree in my village, at the top of a hill in my village. Gorgeous. It's a bit windy today, so I need to be protected by this beautiful friend. I want to talk about the Libra full moon happening on the 2nd of April 2026 at 12 minutes p.m. Brisbane time, Australia, and she's sitting at 12 degrees, 21 minutes of Libra. And this is the first full moon of the astrological year that began on the equinox, March 20, and she's ruled by Venus, dignified in Taurus, her home sign. This full moon is sitting on the axis Libra Aries, an axis that speaks of you and how you relate to others and the outside world. With the Aries side representing me, I am, expressing my potential, being present, and the Libra side representing others, we are, the sign of relationships. Here there is a need to rebalance a connection, a relationship in your life. This could be the relationship with yourself, a relationship with someone else, a relationship with something which can generate a form of dependence or relational habits. A full moon is always a moment of illumination. Something becomes more visible, clearer, more conscious. But here, this light does not just illuminate an external situation. It illuminates how you position yourself within a relationship. Because this Aries-Libra axis does not simply speak of you and others. It speaks of the space between the two. That place where you adjust, where you compromise, where you try to maintain a balance. And it is often there that something can be lost, not through mistake or weakness, but simply because you are trying to do the right thing. And that is where it gets interesting, because this full moon reveals a moment when the relationship becomes a mirror that shows you how you adapt, how you position yourself, and how far you sometimes forget yourself. Aries initiates, acts, asserts, and Libra, on the other hand, adjusts, connects, seeks harmony. And their opposition does not represent a conflict, but a gap between what you feel for yourself and how you position yourself with others. And the questions here are you finding balance, or are you adapting in your relationship? Are you truly asserting yourself, or are you adjusting to preserve the connection and harmony? And this can be highlighted as a tendency to conform to the expectations of others or someone else, but also expectations to which you have conformed and submitted, so as not to be rejected, not to bother anyone, to please, to give pleasure. And now you see that you have reached the end of something, as this may have been going on for far too long. So it is a full moon that will evoke emotions related to freedom, individuality, and the need to gain autonomy. And there is a struggle taking place to let go, to abandon what was holding you back in order to assert your will. So it is important to look at your birth chart to see in which houses or areas of your life these energies are positioned. Look where the Aries-Libra axis is located. The signs of Cancer, Aquarius, Taurus, and the Pisces-Virgo axis as well. Take the time to examine what this might correspond to, what this evokes something for you, without overthinking it. So during This lunar cycle, there may be tension, friction, but the key is perseverance and courage. This full moon asks you to reevaluate the quality of your relationships, your connections, and to face the truth like a mirror in which you can project yourself to try to understand where the difficulty lies in the connection or relationship. Then you can bring to light the pretenses, the connections maintained out of obligation, constraint, habit, and you can question them. And we see that this full moon is not alone. She's having a tense conversation, a T-square, with Jupiter in Cancer. And there things intensify. Jupiter amplifies the tension because he's squaring the sun and also the moon. So he is the apex of this T-square, thus becoming the central point that changes the entire dynamic. Jupiter in Cancer touches something very sensitive: emotions, emotional needs, inner security. And in this context, everything is amplified. Reactions, expectations, feelings, everything becomes stronger. And this can create inner confusion. So you may ask to yourself, is what I'm feeling right? Or is it amplified by a need for reassurance? And that is where finding balance becomes more difficult. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer and is ruled by the moon. So in addition to the mirror, there is a reinforcement brought by Jupiter like a magnifying glass, focused on relational and emotional life and its connections. So the sun in Aries is ruled by Mars in Pisces. The Mars is ruled by Neptune, but also ruled by Jupiter, which is a traditional ruler of Pisces. We are all collectively, but also individually, receptacle of these ambient energies. So you could experience during this lunar cycle, a few days before and after, feelings of relational tension, confrontations, and exaggeration of emotions. And this can lead to questioning and the need to take a stand, to assert your point of view, your ideas, to dare to clarify what isn't clear. So be aware of this. So this full moon, starting from tensions, hidden or exposed conflicts, is an opportunity to rebalance, to reorganize, to move forward on new paths, on new foundations. There is another dynamic at play during this full moon. The sun is conjunct Saturn in Aries. They have been just conjunct and come out of their rare conjunction, hello, which means in the heart in Arabic. And in March 25th, Saturn was in the heart of the sun. So at this full moon, this sun radiates Saturnian values upon us. And here in Aries, this represents new goals with discipline, authenticity, and truth. Saturn brings a different energy. He slows things down, he structures, he confronts us with pragmatic reality. And he poses a very simple yet very compelling question. What you want to affirm, are you ready to take responsibility for it? So during this full moon time, you're invited to embrace the truth within yourself, to let go, to shed pretenses, to detach yourself from masks, to be more real, more authentic. And this can happen in surprising ways, such as a situation that makes you aware of the mask or masks you wear, or through a reflection someone makes, a remark, or a deep inner feeling that gives you the impression of a form of depersonalization and that highlights the mask you can wear. It can also be someone else's situation that makes you realize they are forced to wear a mask and that at some point in the struggle to conform to certain rules, something breaks. Because there is a kind of obligation to adopt a mask, to be accepted at work, in a relationship, to be recognized, to have your place, to be loved. And at some point, it is no longer possible and things fall apart. If you have built a strong persona who takes responsibility, who does not show their emotions, who smiles to please, who behaves to please or to conform to what society expects, you will feel that something is no longer possible. That now, for your evolution, the mask must be removed because it served its purpose for a time. Because in a way, it walls you in, it locks you in habits, for example, stifling habits. You can no longer, or you can't sufficiently express your will, your identity, your creativity, your potential for achievement. So this lunar cycle can truly shake you up, but it is essential. You may feel depersonalized, feel a mental and emotional fatigue because playing the mask is exhausting. Trying to please others is exhausting. Being the way you think you must be, to be loved, recognized, not rejected, all of this resonates well with Karen in Aries. It is about wounds, about rejection, injustice. So this full moon in Libra is a time of self-discovery, a part of you perhaps you didn't want to face. And the mask you were applying, consciously or unconsciously, will be exposed one way or another to allow you to realize the reality represented by Saturn and to be yourself, which is the sun. And what about action? The ruler of Aries is Mars, and Mars is currently still in Pisces. And what is more, is without aspect, no conversation, without any interaction with the rest of the sky. So he is an isolated Mars. Therefore, the energy for action is not directly connected to the rest of the astral climate. And this can give a very strange feeling, as if something wants to move, but without knowing how. A desire to move forward, but without a clear direction. It is an action that remains internal, introspective, more intuitive, less concrete. And it is often there that we can feel stuck. Not because there is no momentum, but because that momentum has not yet found its form to truly act. So despite the energy of Aries, this full moon is not necessarily a time to act quickly. It is a time to feel and allow more just direction to emerge. A direction that does not seek to control everything, but to trust even in uncertainty. And in the midst of all this, there is an opening. Jupiter forms an harmonious trine with Mercury in Pisces. And this conversation brings something precious. Understanding, the ability to make sense of it, to connect what you are experiencing, even if it is unclear, even if it is emotional. An intuitive intelligence can emerge. And that is essential because this full moon is not necessarily a time to decide, but it is a time to understand deeply what is happening within you. And here we arrive at the heart of this full moon, because the ruler of the moon in Libra is Venus, and Venus is in Taurus, in a home sign. And this reinforces this need for stability, security, and attachment. Venus in Taurus brings you back to a slower pace, more caution, and more enjoyment of what you already possess, rather than what you covet. Venus in Taurus reminds you that you may already have more than you think. After weeks in Aries, where everything was moving too fast, Venus in Taurus now brings a return to calm. The Sun-Saturn conjunction shows you the truth and helps you build, and Venus in Taurus reminds you to breathe while you build. But a tension arises because Venus forms a square with Pluto in Aquarius. And Pluto comes to disrupt this stability. And often what we call stability in reality is something we cling to. Pluto squaring Venus, the ruler of this full moon, can mark the end of certain stability. And this stability, it may be a question of seeing what it is based on. Is it based on fears, a need for security, a material or emotional needs, a fear of scarcity? The goal here is to nurture a more autonomous relationship, less built on a form of dependence. It will be then important to try to find a balance between emotional need and reason, between fear of rejection, fear of lack, or also a feeling of injustice, which could lead to a strong reaction, to overreacting because a wound is awakened by the circumstances. And again, this resonates here with Chiron in Aries, ruled by Mars in Pisces. So there can be a strong emotional reaction. So ask yourself, what compromises have you made out of fear of rejection? What pretenses have you maintained to be accepted, loved? Pluto in Aquarius is coming to tear off the mask, to purge what needs purging, so that you can have a more authentic relationship with yourself or with the other person. So who is the other person in your life? And the first answer that comes to your mind will push you to consider what you will feel, to understand this relationship, which may no longer be sufficiently balanced and fair. To whom or what are you dependent? This is a question. This full moon asks you to face all of this head on, to understand what needs to be rebalanced. Now you have the opportunity to exist, to be true, more aligned with the purpose for which your soul incarnated. Pluto squaring Venus will destroy relationships that are no longer authentic, vibrant, or alive. There are relationships that keep you in a kind of dependency. So look at where you stand in terms of reality, truth, and your true choices. Because this full moon calls for courage and authenticity. So it is about making a decision and breaking with the ambiguity between yourself and others. So Pluto brings to light what you want to keep, what you refuse to see changed, but which is already evolving, whether you like it or not. And this can be uncomfortable because it affects your relationships, your habits, your points of reference, with the feeling that something has to let go. But what is interesting is that this transformation is not necessarily brutal, because Pluto is supported by Saturn and Neptune in Aries through a favorable sextile. Saturn brings structure and Neptune brings a form of inspiration. So it is not chaos. It is a transformation that can be integrated little by little consciously. And the sextile between Pluto and Saturn is exact. We can see it as a door opening, but it does not push you through. The door is open, but it is up to you to decide whether you go through or not. Most people will simply stare at the open door. But those who dare crossing the doorstep will remember it for a long time. Because this door opens at the very beginning of the astrological new year, just after the equinox, just after the Sun-Saturn Cazimi. So it is an important passage that makes you see if what you have built is standing, yes or no. And in the background of this full moon, there is Uranus in Taurus, in sextile to Neptune in Aries, and in trine to Pluto in Aquarius. These are gentle conversations that bring about a slow but inevitable fundamental change. Something may be evolving even if it is not yet visible, and this is often what prepares the ground for real turning points. So this Libra full moon is a very particular moment where you are seeking to regain balance, like when you realize that something within you wants to evolve, but everything around you, your environment, has not yet adjusted. So there is a gap, an imbalance that you feel and can no longer ignore. An imbalance that requires adjustments on your part. So observe, adjust, feel, and perhaps for once it is not about finding perfect balance, but about learning to listen to it differently. Because deep down, balance is not something you achieve once and for all. It is something that shifts, adjusts, redefines itself as your life evolves. It is a subtle movement, like a point of support that tilts slightly to one side, then to the other, until it finds a new stability. Not perfect, but more accurate in the face of what you are experiencing today, now. So I wish you step by step to find your rightful balance of the moment, like a dance of the present moment. I call it a Manava dance. Manava, the fourth principle of Huna philosophy, is defined as now is the moment of power, be here. It is considered the pivotal point for achieving a state of internal balance, transformation, and healing, as it urges you to remain present rather than dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. Manava is truly balance, as it acts as a central force among the 7 principles of Huna. If you liked this video, then share it, and if you want, leave me a comment about your search for balance. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Françoise the Guiding Star, to continue exploring these lunar cycles with me, and to book a personal reading if you want. So I wish you a very beautiful full moon in Libra. Step by step, find your perfect balance. Practice to be here in the moment and enjoy your Manava dance. May we all walk the path of our heart with love and light.